All right. Now, I guess the bottom line to all of this is that you're going to have a better looking car for a longer period of time, and when it comes time for trade-in, you're going to get more money for it.
That's correct. So it's two different things. It's about the car that you love, and you want to protect that no matter what. And then second thing is, if you're, let's say, leasing a car on a 2 or 3 year term, once you turn that car in, you say, hey, dealership, here's a set of keys. I'm going to take a set of keys back. 45 days later, the leasing company might just hit you with a bill for the condition of how the car was up on the front. So it's better to finance the paint away, and then when you trade in the keys, you don't have to worry about it.
Got it. Eric, thank you. And if you have a question or a comment, drop me a line right here at Motor Week.
A brand new car, a full tank of gas, and a key fob. That's all we need for a quick spin. When SRT engineers created Hellcat engines for the Dodge Charger and Challenger, some wondered if that performance would ever be paired with Jeep's ruggedness. Well, it has in the 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk. Here, the Hellcat supercharged 6.2-liter V8 rates 707 horsepower and 645 pound-feet of torque. That big engine needs a lot of air, so fog lights are swapped for cold air ducts. An upgraded 8-speed automatic transmission triggers lightning-fast shifts. In sport mode, they're even quicker and the steering firmer. For us, that was the sweet spot while driving on the highway and these back roads in Maine and New Hampshire.
There's also a quad exhaust system out back. There's a bit of refinement to it. It's not as brutal and aggressive as the Charger and the Challenger, but still really nice. And you get a lot of that sound there, laying into the throttle. I mean, it's everything you want, maybe just a little bit more refined than those other cars.
This lowered SUV was also right at home at Club Motorsports in Tamworth, New Hampshire, maintaining great composure and stability. The Brembo brake system with 15 3/4-inch front rotors kept the hard braking zones largely uneventful. But the Trackhawk is still best suited for straight line runs. With the easy-to-use launch control system and all 4 wheels putting power down, we zoomed to 60 in 3.5 seconds on the very first run. The 2018 Jeep Grand Cherokee Trackhawk well handled the drive to the track, our time on the track, and the drive back home, while still maintaining much of its all-weather and off-pavement capabilities. Look for it by the end of the year, starting at around $86,000. The 2017 Mini John Cooper Works Clubman brings more of what we like to the premium hatchback segment. It bears the name of legendary British race car builder John Cooper, who began the brand's long history of rally car racing. This is the first Mini to combine the latest version of the performance enhancements with the new all-4 all-wheel drive system. The 2-liter Turbo 4 pumps out 228 horsepower. It's the most powerful engine yet for a production Mini. When we slipped into the driver's seat, this compact all-wheel driver jumped off the line with good low-end torque and plenty of grip. The 8-speed Sport automatic shifts quickly like it can't stand to be still. The engine and exhaust sound like a swarm of angry hornets and reverberate all around the cabin, and they're noises we enjoy hearing. At low speeds, response is quick and it can be darty. Steering is, however, razor sharp and heavy with some actual feel. The almost perfectly balanced body produces 0 roll. When it comes time to stop, the Brembo brake system hunkers down and halts in a hurry. It's no secret we're big fans of Mini, but combining the versatility of the 5-door Clubman and all-wheel drive with the top performance level of the brand made us ever more so. It's on sale now, starting just under $36,000. We've spent a lot of time behind the wheel of the latest Kia Optima sedan. It just left our fleet after a year's service. But this 2017 Kia Optima Hybrid makes this midsize 4-doors Euro-spec style and driving response that much more appealing. A new 154 horsepower 2-liter 4 is matched with a new 38 kilowatt electric motor for a combined output of 193 horsepower. Transitions between gasoline and electric are virtually invisible. The lithium polymer battery pack improves capacity by 13%. It's now rated at 1.62 kilowatt hours, and Kia put it under the trunk floor, so there's no compromising the 60/40 split folding rear seats like some rivals. Also, unlike most hybrids, the Optima has a true 6-speed geared automatic transmission and not a CVT. Always a good way to get our attention. The electric power steering has good weight. The stiffer chassis gives it fine road manners that mimics high-end European sedans. The 2017 Kia Optima Hybrid continues to propel the brand forward. It's a family sedan that provides style and enjoyable drive with longer trips between gas stations. On sale now, prices start around $26,000. And we'll have more quick spins soon. No doubt the latest Honda Civic is a winner. But it really became a winner in our hearts when Honda announced that a new high-output Turbo SI and Type R were headed our way. And while the Fast and Furious crowd are surely salivating over the fact that we're finally getting a real Type R here, it's the more attainable SI that arrives first. And here's why we're so happy that that wait is over. Sport-injected Honda Civics are hardly new, having in some form or another been available off and on here in the States for over 30 years. But since the latest 10th generation Civic is clearly the best one yet, does it follow that the 2017 Honda Civic Si is the best of its kind as well? Well, for starters, our SI sedan felt just as expertly put together as other Civic four-doors. A coupe is also available, but as of right now, no SI hatchback. Both bodies get their own unique updates. The sedan's a little subtler in nature. There's a distinctive fascia with gloss black trim and larger air intakes up front, 18-inch split-spoke alloys underneath, and central-mounted hexagon exhaust tip in back. It's a great-looking package that earned more than a few "That's a Civic?" questions from casual observers. The engine is a 1.5-liter i4 turbo. True, it's the same one in other up-level Civics, but now with cranked-up boost to over 20 psi. So horsepower rises 31 to 205, torque climbs 30 to 192 pound-feet. A 6-speed manual is the only transmission available, and it's a really good one. As is the SI in general, provided you have the proper perspective. It's not meant to be a no-holes-barred performance car. That's for the Type R. Rather, the SI is a much more interesting daily driver. And it is a total pleasure to drive, not harsh or too fast and furious. And that's where this car seems to have run afoul with many online haters. They clearly wanted more. VTEC snobs are also bemoaning this new car's lack of an on-off power switch. But it's time to move on, people. For better or worse, we're in a new Turbo 4 era, and this engine puts out more power and delivers it sooner than any SI before it. And allow Honda to introduce something the old 2.4 never had. It's called mid-range torque, and there's a decent amount of it here. Peak power is delivered at 2100 RPM, and it basically just stays there. Things can get a bit noisy inside, otherwise it's very comfortable with nicely supportive sports seats. Steering has good weight to it, and there's a thick wheel for getting things in motion. This SI handles corners with ease. It's nimble and light, and indeed it is almost 100 pounds lighter than before. The suspension has, of course, been sport-tuned, complete with new adaptive dampers. As before, a limited slip differential is included. Add in super sticky Goodyear Eagle F1 summer tires, and things stay very flat. As for straight-line kicks, there's decent grip at launch, provided you mind the revs. Torque steer was not a problem as we leapt to 60 in 6.5 seconds, about a half second better than the last 2.4. Maintaining peak boost from the little turbo is a delicate job, however. The Honda has included some shift lights in the gauge pod to help. Just wait a beat after you see them and you're golden. Shift too soon and there's a definite lag in boost. The shifter itself is slick and precise, but we could use a little more clutch pedal feel. 15.2 seconds. The brakes are even more impressive. We average 102 feet from 60 with no fade, no dive, no drama. Here, pedal feel is excellent. All that and it still delivers improved government fuel economy rating. 28 city, 38 highway, and 32 combined on premium. SI trim may not come as feature-packed as some might like, but then pricing starts at just $24,775 for both sedan and coupe. Clearly, the base Civic has come a long way in recent years, yet Honda has managed to take the 2017 Civic Si even further. Yes, it is the best SI yet. Still, as with many things new and improved, they lose a little soul along the way. But don't judge this SI until you drive it. And we'll bet that if you love your current SI, you'll want this one even more. Well, that's our show. I hope you enjoyed it. Now, for more Motor Week, including daily news updates, podcasts, and even complete episodes, cruise on over to pbs.org/motorweek. And I hope you'll join us next time for more of every kind of performance in the Porsche 911 GTS. Then it's a new luxurious look for the Buick Encore. Till then, I'm John Davis. We'll see you right here on Motor Week.
To learn more about Motor Week, television's original automotive magazine, visit pbs.org/motorweek. This program was produced by Maryland Public Television, which is solely responsible for its content.
Since we've started City of Asylum Pittsburgh, I've seen how freedom of expression can inspire many people in a way that I didn't imagine was possible. The United States is a country where First Amendment rights and the idea to speak your mind is just so deeply ingrained that I think that is fundamental, and everybody feels that as a sense of entitlement. City of Asylum Pittsburgh began to provide sanctuary to a writer exiled under threat of persecution. The writer could be endangered with prison, violence, or censored in a way that you can't publish freely. Our goal is to provide a place to live, a living income, and medical benefits. We feel it's extremely important that the writer maintain the identity of being a writer, and the only way to do that in exile is to be published in the country you're in. The City of Asylum is most populated in Europe. There are, however, really developing cities around the world now. Mexico City for many years has had a very strong program and I think supports 2 writers there currently. Brazil is about to have a City of Asylum, and there's a movement by this international organization to begin to internationalize it more outside of Europe. In the United States, there are 2 other cities of asylum, both university affiliated, one at the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. Ootisimka, the writer who was instrumental in founding the whole movement worldwide, was in exile and in the faculty there for a good deal. And the other program is a consortium of universities in Ithaca, so he himself was instrumental in getting these other 2 programs. We have 4 houses with writing on the outside in various languages that were inspired by the original writer in our program, Wang Zhang. Wang Zhang was from China, and when he came here, he wanted to celebrate his freedom. He had never been allowed to express himself. He'd been tortured where his mouth had been beaten in, so he couldn't even recite his poetry publicly, or they tried to prevent it in China. As more writers came to our program and we began to provide more houses for them, we used that idea of publishing a book, but we called it house publishing. And we were creating a public library of these houses as you walk down the street. So we have House Poem, Winged House, we have Jazz House, and we have Pittsburgh Burma House. And we have a few houses where writers live that do not have art, which are untitled, so we welcome suggestions from other people. We've had writers now from a long-term program from 6 different countries: China, El Salvador, Burma, Venezuela, Iran, and Bangladesh. I think everybody in this community understands the value of what we have here and is more committed to understanding the meaning of creative expression, First Amendment rights in a different way than maybe we did before, because we have monuments in our midst, living monuments, who represent what it's like to lose that.
barnaamijka qubanaha waxa aanu bilownay bishii Juulaay ee sanadkii hore, waxaana hadafku yahay inaanu dadka u gudbino barnaamijyo muuqaal ah annaga oo hiigsanayna TV.
qubanaha VOA waxaan ku soo gudbinaa qubanayaal goosgoos oo xiiso badan oo ku saabsan arrimaha Soomaaliya, Mareykanka iyo caalamkaba.
haddaba qubanaha VOA-da kala soco website-keena voasomali.com.
Funding for To the Contrary provided by the Cornell Douglas Foundation, committed to encouraging stewardship of the environment, land conservation, watershed protection, and eliminating harmful chemicals. Additional funding provided by the Wallace Genetic Foundation, the Colcom Foundation, and the Charles A. Freoff Foundation.
This week on To the Contrary. First, major changes in how sexual harassment and assault at the workplace will be handled. How will it change society and the workplace? Behind the headlines, imagining a world where men and women are equal. Welcome to the Contrary, a discussion of news and social trends from diverse perspectives. Up first, the outing of sexual harassment. The past couple weeks may prove to be a dam-busting moment in American sexual politics. Workplace sexual harassment is being scrutinized and its alleged perpetrators outed and punished as never before. It started with the firing of superstar Hollywood producer Harvey Weinstein, and this week the resignation of National Public Radio's Senior Vice President for News and News Editor Michael Oreskes. And in between, Amazon Studio Chief Roy Price, Academy Award winners Dustin Hoffman and Kevin Spacey, even former President George H.W. Bush. They've all faced new accusations of sexual harassment and/or assault. Will these cases change American attitudes in business and politics towards protecting accusers and quickly firing serial abusers? Experts say it's possible. Large companies are adopting programs that fight sexual harassment. Congress is reviewing its policies, warp-speed internet promotion of accusations, and the fact women, who make up the majority of targets and who are also edging towards equality in the workplace, may push us into an era during which this crime will no longer be tolerated. But critics warn previous turning points have been false dawns. The most conservative estimates say 25% of women face harassment in the workplace. The actual number is thought to be much higher, since most victims don't come forward. So Congresswoman Norton,
different is happening. Witness that when men are called out, more seem to be confessing than denying.
I think we're at a moment. I'm not sure that it's a turning point yet. It reminds me of a few years back when something small happened with Tiger Woods. He hit a tree and all these women fell out. So we're in a moment.
Don't bank on it. Remember that year of the woman in 1992 when we assumed we'd have a lot more women in elected office? We've flatlined since then.
I think this will absolutely be bookmarked in history, but I think it's also important to note that what you're seeing is accusations of serial abuse. You see women who find safety in numbers. You have one woman step out and then many others behind them, but it's a question of whether those women knew about each other prior to that. So there's some safety in them stepping out and knowing that there'll be others behind them for those each individual accusers.
And what I see, especially with NPR, the mea culpas for ignoring earlier accusations are just, they're bending over backwards now to make sure that doesn't happen again, and they're feeling very
But one
guilty
thing funny
about
in
it.
those mea culpas is time. They're all talking, the majority of them are talking about time. Well, in that era, I didn't know any better, or, that's how things used to be, and now I'm realizing my wrongs. We heard that from Mark Halperin, for example, that I now realize I had a problem. Well, buddy, when you were doing all that stuff, you didn't realize you had a problem then, and there are even more accusers with him, too. And this is across.
But this is going to help, at least in the corporate world, it's going to help companies give more credence to these accusations and realize that they're going to look bad if they try to overlook some of these accusations. I think that will be one aspect
I think
of
it'll
this
take
that
time.
will change.
I think it will change. I do agree with that because of the variety of industries this is coming out in: entertainment, journalism, politics,
government.
So yeah, exactly.
But I think the danger.
The difficulty is, and remember when I became chair of the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, this was not even considered this was not considered discrimination. We issued guidelines that for the first time said that sexual harassment was a violation of Title VII of 1964 Civil Rights Act. So I can't consider this progress rapid because it has taken so long, frankly, for men to do anything. And the reason it's taken long, and I think will continue, is that this is a one-on-one unwitnessed violation.
Right.
And that's what's so remarkable about what's happened. These men, some of them, are confessing even though the only person who knows it's true is the woman and, of course, they themselves. When they feel they have to come up, and when corporations feel they have to do something about it rather than keeping them on because it was an unwitnessed violation, that's progress.
Okay, but how is the fact that unlike Bill Clinton and Bush, who were Bush Sr., who were not elected before the country knew that they had ever been abusers of any, in Clinton's case, obviously serially, in H.W. Bush is just one that we know about. But
which was very recent.
But all this stuff came out about Trump, including the tape of him
And that's why I think we cannot
and we
be
still
naive.
and he was still elected. So what does that say about how much progress we can make on that front?
Yes, but he wasn't elected by the majority of the country. So I think that I think the majority of the country was outraged by the Trump tapes. What's important here, though, and when you were talking about the one-on-one accusation issues, and the instances that we've seen, with the exception of former President Bush, it has been multiple women stepping forward. And what you've also seen is an immediate mea culpas, but also apologies. So again,
and
historic precedents, but I mean, you see this in entities and among individuals where it's systemic, and I think that's the real difference here. You have women feeling very comfortable speaking out when they know about each other.
Now, President Trump has accusations of sexual harassment and assault coming up against him. We're going to find out soon by one court ruling, but it may be in court. Lawsuits.
Absolutely.
What's that going to do?
I think that Trump is a perfect example. I think it's really easy to get complacent and naive in a moment like this, where we say, oh, this is finally going to be fixed, we're off and running, when nothing could be further from the truth. And part of the problem is women drink just as deeply from sexist groundwater as men do. It's inescapable. It is part of our culture.
What do you mean by that?
Because women can behave without, if a woman doesn't herself recognize that what's coming at her is unacceptable and sexist, and just accepts it as boys will be boys, right? Which is, I think, the fruit basket that Trump hides behind, right? He's the errant uncle that behaves that poorly at family reunion picnics, and we give him a pass. There are so many women that voted for him despite the outrage that's going on. I think it's very dangerous in a time like this that we think the job is done. I think in a moment like this, what we have to go is the job has started, and let's run with this.
The majority if the court rules in favor of allowing those lawsuits to go forward, and the inside talk is that it will, what are we going to see those lawsuits go to trial, or is he going to have to buy the women off? And if so, what message from that?
These suits rarely go to completion precisely because of questions of proof. Again, I go back to the one-on-one notion, but you know, in terms of women, you speak a little too much as if to blame the victim. We're talking about real differences in power here and hierarchy. So the notion that women, you know, are partly responsible, I reject.
Well, hold on there. I am myself the victim of sexual abuse and very outspoken about that, Congresswoman. Will never blame the victim. What I'm speaking to, we have to prevent this sort of naivete about the culture that we're in, Congresswoman. We are in an inherently sexist culture. We view these behaviors as misbehaviors, not misconducts. It's a big difference there. What I think is positive, to your point, Bonnie, is there are people coming forward. There are resignations. That's all good momentum. We just can't sit on our laurels and assume
you know, you're my generation, you're absolutely right about, because I was, you know, sexually harassed at you know, 30 years ago, and I took it as, well, I thought about filing a lawsuit against the major corporation I was working for at the time. My career would have been over. So it just, you had,
and that's
it was
the
like
point,
toughen up and get over
So
it.
this Me Too campaign that really caught fire on Twitter and Facebook, and I mean, there were women coming out with stories that I would have never guessed, friends who I just never assumed had a story like this. But the problem with that was that there are still so many hundreds and thousands of women who could not participate in that campaign because of the professional problems that they would cause themselves by coming out and saying this happened. Well,
but is that changing? Is that changing?
Not anytime soon, I don't think.
I don't really know. We don't really know. This is not something people want to talk about. What we do know is we've seen instances of sexual harassment in Silicon Valley among venture capitalists and investors. You've seen
women
it in Hollywood.
had a terrible time in Silicon Valley.
You've seen it in Hollywood. You've seen it in the media world. We're not seeing this in rank-and-file companies across America. Why not? Is it because it's not happening? I doubt it.
And if I could point out, here we have California, inarguably the most liberal state in our union that is home to some of the most egregious industries when it comes to sexism in the form of tech and entertainment.
Importantly, the women who are now speaking up are not speaking up about concurrent sexual harassment. They're speaking up about what happened to them years ago. And the reason that the rank and file can't is because of these disparities in power, and they are going to continue to exist.
Well, Sheryl Sandberg's answer is to fire people who helped hide, you know, like Harvey Weinstein had all these people around him who set up hotel rooms and all that kind of stuff, and fire those people if they don't come forward.
I get her goal is a noble one, but I mean, that's tough to do too, you know? Harvey Weinstein's assistant was a female. Who knows how she felt doing all this stuff? I mean, it was a job. She had to do what her boss asked her to do, and I mean, to say that she was a villain in part of the story, like, we'll never really fully know, and that has to get litigated somewhere else. The reality is, and this was rather surprising to me, is that last month Pew Research Center unveiled some study that said that millennial women versus older women think that men have it easier. And I think that's part of the problem, is that we millennial women still think that men do have it easier. So
easier in what way?
In general. in general, in the workplace, in life.
It's easier for them to get ahead.
Exactly. And so I think that mentality, even though millennial women are the ones who are more likely to call it out and are the ones like taking this to task, really, or at least leading the way, I'd like to say right this very moment, it's tough when that is your worldview.
Well, and you, on your side of the table and on your side of the aisle, will Republican women chime in and join with feminists on the left fighting this problem, or are they just going to, because obviously when it comes to choice,